There we go. There's what I need. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing today? We'd like to welcome you to our podcast called Gaming with a Point.
Yo, okay. Alright. Yeah, I hope everyone's having a good day. I, for one, am very excited about this podcast. It's been the only thing on my mind for I don't even know how long. I'd say I've been working on this for has it been a month, Brian?
A little over a month. I think we started talking about it before Christmas.
And ever since then, I've been plotting.
Yeah, we've been plotting this.
I wanted Brian to be on this for sure.
All right. So you want to start out the conversation, Gustavo? You want me to?
Yeah, so this is Gaming with a Point. This is going to be a podcast where we pretty much just talk about a whole bunch of different topics about basically the adult world, and a lot of people aren't really prepared for the adult world, and obviously we're trying to figure that out. So we're just going to be talking about our different experiences and basically the adult world from a perspective of a boomer, Brian, and a Gen Z, me.
So for context, I'm not actually a boomer. That's
Brian will always be a boomer in my eyes.
which is fine. But yeah, no. So obviously comes down to what we're kind of doing here is trying to give you guys a chance to be able to come and chat with us and kind of figure out like who we are and kind of hopefully in the end help you figure out who you are, because we want to have these conversations and have awesome chats and stuff. So today we're kind of going to be discussing us and who we are, how this all came to be, kind of. So for how we kind of came together in the first place was I was president of the Esports Association over at SUNY Oswego, the college we both went to. And so I was kind of running things there. I started there in 2017. How I discovered the club kind of came down to I had been on the Hearthstone team of my previous college, my community college. And so I had done pretty well. I gotten pretty addicted to the game. I was looking to join a team for SUNY Oswego. So I'm like, there's no way there's not a team for this. So I decided to look around, and I ended up finding actually another club on campus, Storytellers Guild. And I was kind of looking to see, hey, do you guys do like competitive e-gaming? And they're like, no, that's more of a esports thing. So that's how I ended up finding it, because as Gustavo will tell you, we are not well advertised. So it comes down to, with that, I wanted to change that in the end. I wanted to make it where we ended up being more recognizable. So it ended up really changing how things were viewed. I ended up taking a lot of the lead in my first year even, and then from there I took more and more of a lead. So by the end of my second semester there, I was getting ready to become president, and my VP at the time actually was going to be in charge of league, but he ended up not coming to school. And that's actually how I met Gustavo, is he was friends with that individual, Luke, who's actually a good friend of both of us and both of our podcasts, or both our channels. Awesome dude. But he suggested to Gustavo to get in touch with me if he wanted league to kind of continue, and that's kind of where everything started for Gustavo and I. Anything you'd like to add to that, Gustavo?
Yeah. So I start off on how I found the club. So I played a lot of League of Legends back in high school, and since I played League of Legends, and I also went to this new college that I don't know anyone in. I thought I would just join a team and see where things go. So I joined the team. Um, you know, met some people, but I'm also a very, very shy and introverted person. So all I did was team stuff at the time, and eventually, I so from high school, I came into Oswego with three other people, and we all became roommates, and we had a really good time. But eventually, they all left the school, and I was pretty much stuck by myself. And since I'm very shy and introverted, I had absolutely no one. I knew no one. So I was put in a position where I needed to start meeting people desperately because life in college would have been very, very rough without knowing anyone. So I was already out on the team at the time, and I knew a couple people, but I wasn't really like close to them. So, but I talked to Luke. He was a coordinator for League of Legends at the moment. I didn't even know he was going for vice president at the time. But yeah, we talked, and it turns out that he needed to head out and work on his own stuff, and there wasn't going to be anyone for League of Legends, and I wanted to keep playing League of Legends, and I knew if I didn't step up, League of Legends was pretty much going to die in the school because no one really wanted to step up.
Huh?
So
Wait, what's
that's
that
when
there?
I met Brian. I went to this. There was a meeting in the
Wait, wait.
auditorium.
What's going on
basically
with the
just
scout
like
flies?
saying everything that's gonna happen the year of that school year, and like all the things that the esports association was gonna do. And I walked up to Brian and I was like, "Yo, I heard that you guys need a new league coordinator. I'm willing to go over there. I'm willing to help out and do whatever I have to do." And that's pretty much how I met Brian and how we got started.
Yeah. So, for both of us, it came down to like a lot of what we were doing was trying to be involved in esports. We kind of discovered common interest in being leaders and moving that forward. So that's kind of where we kind of clicked. So then Gustavo had an idea because me and him had both been streaming for a while, kind of trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And he came up with this idea of, well, why don't, because we're always chatting anyways half the time because he lives literally right around the corner.
Brian is the person I confide in like the most around here.
Yeah. But yeah, so it came down to, well, if we're already having these conversations and we're already talking about this kind of stuff, why don't we try to involve other people and see if maybe they're having similar experiences? So it's kind of where it came down to, is we wanted to kind of involve other people and see maybe they're having those issues too, and they want to have these discussions because they don't know like kind of where to start. So it's kind of how that came to be. Anything else you'd like to bring up here, Gustavo, for this?
Let's see. Let me think. I'm in a mini boss right now, so concentrating is a bit difficult.
Oh, there's a Barrett. Speaking of,
So yeah, I can talk about more in depth of like. Oh, I died. I can talk about a little bit more in depth on like what I did in esports because I moved around a lot in the club, and I'm in a very different situation than I was in the beginning. So, like I said before, I signed up to be league coordinator, and then I came into the school specifically for accounting at the time, which is, by the way, one of the worst mistakes I've made. But it wasn't that. It was a mistake. I don't regret it, but it was still a big waste of money if I'm gonna be completely honest. But anyways, because I came into the school with the intentions of being in accounting and being an accounting major, after a while of being a league coordinator, noticing that I actually like care about the club, I tried to prepare myself to take over the treasurer role in the club. And then through training and doing a whole bunch of shit with the club, I realized I care a lot more than I originally thought, and I eventually wanted to become the actual president of the club because Brian, at the time, I can't remember if you were just insanely busy or how did that
Uh,
happen? Because
when you were
you
becoming
actually
VP?
when I was so I was originally trying to become president.
Mm-hmm.
Then things got a little bit complicated, and I realized I didn't have the full time to be president, so I had to stick with VP instead. But were you? What position were you when we were trying to like set that all up?
So I was actually transitioning out of being president because I was
Oh
getting
yeah,
ready
yeah, yeah.
to, because I wasn't sure what my decision was going to be because I was very indifferent. I was getting ready to graduate. And so I had to kind of decide, okay, where does this route take me now? Because I was very
Brian's
much
a
in a
boomer.
position of like, am I done with school? Do I want to continue trying to go into graduate school? I was in that kind of rough position where I had to make that choice, and so kind of it came down to we had to find somebody to start taking over because I had kind of run everything for a very long time. Where I had people around me that helped, but none of them were really ready for that kind of responsibility to
Yeah.
run the entire club. So it came
While I
down
was
to. Go ahead.
while I was training to be treasurer, it kind of low key felt like Brian was like prepping me because we had our own separate talks, and we've like been discussing since we both care a lot about the club. We always aside from like staff meetings in the club, we would like go one on one, like be talking about a whole bunch of shit. And low key thinking about it, kind of felt like he was like prepping me for that role, which that was I'm not sure if that was entirely intentional.
I mean, I obviously intended for you to kind of take some kind of leadership role, just because, like, there weren't many other people that were obviously interested. And that's obviously the same problem we're continuing to have. It comes down to like, well, you put the card when you don't know.
You gotta think real hard about it. Because if you put the wrong person,
Valid.
at some point,
We're kind of in a hard position where we're kind of essentially forced
it's
there
like,
wasn't much of a choice.
yeah.
Okay, I'd really turn down this volume.
Yeah, it was we cared a lot, and so we always had a lot of conversations. And Brian, since he's been in that role, and he's been in like the leadership role all this time. He also has a lot more experience with, you know, him being a boomer.
I mean, as I said before, I accept the fact that y'all call me a boomer because of the fact that y'all don't mean it as an insult. Y'all mean it
No,
as
of course not,
essentially like, hey, he's the one with the knowledge here.
Yeah, of course. It's not. I don't
Just
say
for
it like that,
context.
but yeah. But yeah, I've always looked at Brian as like sort of like a mentor because he's always like helped me out and stuff. And whenever I need someone to talk to, he's always there for me, and I always appreciate that. But yeah, we can start talking about like how this idea came to be. It was so this was my idea, and I reached out to Brian after kind of thinking and making sure that this is something I want to pursue. I didn't want to do this by myself because a podcast talking to yourself, it's that'd be rough, especially for me. I don't really talk that much, so I know I wanted to have someone to talk to, and since I am constantly talking to Brian, and also the dynamic of him being like a mentor and being a mentee. That's something that I thought could be an interesting perspective for a podcast. So I reached out to him, and he was like, "Yeah, sure, I'm down." And so then we started planning a whole bunch, and now we're here. But the idea came to me. It was at work. I so I've been wanting to stream and do Twitch for a while, but I have no clue what I have no clue what I needed to do. So I've always been looking at like different things that could potentially help me out with Twitch and like, figure out what I need to do and what I need to have to be prepared to actually stream. And that led me to a whole bunch of different YouTube videos, a whole bunch of different whole bunch of different resources that helps out with people that wanting to stream. And eventually I found
You've been thrown off.
Professor
Don't
Brown,
sweat it.
which
Pick yourself
was
up and try
basically
again.
me going and talking to a whole bunch of people that wanted to stream and basically giving them like a rundown of what it takes to be someone that streams. And I listened to that every single day at work. It was I used to listen to music at work, and that got me through the day. But instead of music, I started just listening to that daily for like weeks, just non-stop listening to podcasts. And then it made me think, I like listening to this. I have someone in mind that I know we can talk on for literally ages and it'll be fine. So I hit Brian up, and this is how it came to be, and here we are.
Mm-hmm.
So
my
this-
reasoning behind
okay.
agreeing to this, because I'm sure some people will be curious on this one, well, it came down to the idea of this is something that can actually have an effect. This is something that can do some good. And that's always something I've kind of looked towards. That's part of the reason, like, a lot of what I did with the Esports Association came down to trying to essentially get others to be able to believe in themselves and understand that they can do more than what a lot of people anticipate. That's something I've very much tried to deal with Gustavo with other individuals within the officer chat, where I'm very much like, hey, you need to be in a leadership position because you know what you're doing. It's one of those things that I'm very passionate about, is making sure others kind of have an idea of kind of what they're capable of, because I think it's extremely important for people to understand that. And it's not something that everyone understands just by being told. Sometimes you need somebody that pushes for it and everything. So it comes down to that kind of situation where it's like, hey, I can do some more good in this world by kind of pushing for other people to have an understanding of, hey, I can do this thing, or hey, I'm not the only one dealing with this. So that's always
that was
been
one thing about this podcast, is with the things that I plan on talking about, it's like I want to basically like have a whole bunch of different perspectives and like start a conversation on things that, you know, could be interesting or could be helpful, and like basically just talk to people that talk to so many different perspectives where you're like forced to have an open mind on things. You don't just hear like one side of things, because whenever you hear like only one side of things, it's very hard to stay on the perspective where that's the only thing that's like available, and you don't really get the full story of things. So I wanted to have that was another reason why I wanted you specifically, because me and you, we think very differently. We think alike and differently at the same time. There are some things that Brian, would you say you're more emotional or more logical than me?
it really depends on the topic. For most things, I'm probably very much more emotional, because I'm going to take logic into account for certain things, but there are very much things that, like, when it comes to certain subjects, I'm extremely emotional, and logic kind of goes out the window for some things. It's I won't say it's healthy or good, but it's just one of those things that it's part of understanding what you're passionate about, which I know is another topic we want to talk about later. But when you look at stuff like I'm trying to think, like, for me, one of the big ones, obviously, like esports and stuff like that, and kind of bridging that gap that a lot of people think of when they think of esports. So I kind of wanted to, when it came to this podcast, and kind of bringing out passion, everything. So
See, I think I'm like the complete opposite when it comes to the way that I think. I'm very, very logical, and to the point where it might not be the best thing, because I kind of get blinded by logic a little bit. I overthink a lot of stuff, like a lot. It's something I have to work on, but I just like, I'm the type of person where if I see a problem, I just automatically think, okay, solutions. Does this work? Does this work? This doesn't work. This doesn't work. Okay, I need to think of something else. And sometimes it's helpful, but then sometimes it's like, I don't know how I should be reacting to whatever's going on. Because I'm just like, problem solving, that's all I'm doing. And sometimes I just need to be told, like, yo, calm down. This isn't okay. This is okay. And that's who I go to Brian for that, because Brian, I have a lot of faith in Brian, and I have a lot of respect for Brian. If I have a problem and he notices, he will straight up be like, yo, this is an issue.
I'm a very honest person. I've always been very blunt with a lot of things, just because I don't think some situations they need that kind of bluntness. Where other situations, yes, you can be a little more sensitive, but like some of the situations me and you have talked about in the past, obviously one of the big things is like understanding that, hey, this is something that happens, and you can't just act like it's just a thing. You need to actually, like, wait on it. You need to go into it and kind of understand, like, where you're coming from, and look at it from an emotional level instead of just a logical level, because sometimes logic's going to dictate that maybe this isn't the right answer. And like, I've had that situation fairly recently where, like, a lot of people were like, oh, maybe you shouldn't have done that, but I was like, but I had to do it emotionally. I couldn't pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah, that's my issue. I don't do that. I need you to tell me to do that, because I don't. That's I try to, like, fucking, I don't know, man.
And it comes down to, once again, experience.
Yeah,
Two,
of course,
it comes down to understanding yourself, which at your age, it's hard to I didn't know myself at that age. At 20, I barely knew anything, if I'm being honest. I was very much essentially a child, where, yeah, I was in the military at the time, as some of you would know, but at the same time, I also didn't really have an understanding of who I was. I was very
that's
much
something I'm also currently trying to figure out, because I have no clue what I'm doing. And I'm sure I'm not the only one.
You're at that age where you're okay to not know. Because guess what? Things don't always have to be exactly right.
The way that I like to see it is I have a good 5 years. I'm 20 right now. I have a good 5 years of I can just try new things and fuck up for 5 straight years, and I'll still be okay. Of course, I'm not gonna go out trying to like
Purposely
do
mess
dumb
up.
shit. Yeah, but I have a good 5 years where I can already dedicate a year for a
Endeavor.
new hobby or something or a new project for 5 straight years. Have them all fuck up in a row, and I'll still be okay because at the end of the day, I'm still learning something new. I'm still getting shit that will be helpful in the future.
Mm-hmm. And like that's where like, because obviously at your age, I was in the military already. I already was 2 years in. I was very much. I had different ideas of who I was gonna be at that point. I this this version of me that like you've seen, Gustavo, is not at all the same person that I was at
Oh,
20.
I'm
I was
completely ready to have the conversation of what type of person you were before. I'm excited for that one.
that one's probably gonna be my most uncomfortable conversation. Probably gonna be the episode I tell my family do not come watch.
I'm excited.
But yeah, no, like that's one of the things is like you're at that age where it's okay to like make decisions that maybe aren't the best for you because you don't know what's best for you in the long run.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's hard to say that, oh yeah, military was everything I wanted it to be, because it wasn't. Do I appreciate everything it ever gave me? Yes. It made my life very different and made it very much where a lot of the things I want to do are easy because I have that military experience and so many employers look on that as good. So one of those things where, hey, yeah, military, because I know, like, especially right now, a lot of people are very anti-establishment. Not saying it's incorrect or anything, because some of it is a bit extreme, if I'm being honest. So it comes down to having an understanding of, because like people ask me if I'm pro-military, I'm like, to a point. I'm pro-soldier, I'm pro taking care of soldiers, but there's certain parts of it I don't agree with, like especially treatment of soldiers afterwards. Like one of my biggest gripes is the VA system, which is essentially what happens to take care of veterans afterwards. It's an outdated old system that a lot of people have always tried to say, oh, this is, because not to get political, but certain individuals have always, almost every politician has always said, oh, no, I'm going to fix the VA. That's one of their big things. We're going to take care of veterans. But the VA is still as messed up as ever. When I broke my glasses 2 years ago, it took me over a year and a half, or no, 9 months to get just an appointment to get my glasses or get my eyes checked, and then another 2 weeks to actually get my glasses after that. So, but to go to like another hospital or anything, it cost an arm and a leg, and the VA only pays about 10% of it. So it's one of those hard parts of having that experience is there's good parts to it, and there's also parts I cannot stand, because like very much so I know, Gustavo, you know this almost as good as anybody that hangs out with me. I still have the lingo so bad where
yeah.
I will constantly use military phrases, and like the big ones are tracking, Roger.
Yeah.
Every time when I'm in Alba's streams, whenever she has to use her hydrate command, I always make the joke, drink water, beat the heat, drill sergeant, beat the heat, which if anyone went to most basic trainings, it's just a reference to staying hydrated. So it's one of those things like I'm appreciative of everything it gave me, a lot of lifelong friends and everything, but at the same time, the fact that so many people still think of the military as this great thing when there's a lot of issues on the inside that people on the outside will never understand. That's my issue with it, and that's why, like, I'm pro-soldier, somewhat anti-military. So it's one of those weird things that it's hard to explain to someone on the outside looking in. Like,
Yeah, at the end of the day, there's two different perspectives. There's always gonna be pros and there's always gonna be cons to everything. That's just how things work. It depends on how you manage with the pros and cons.
oh yeah, 100%.
There are people that go extremely left and there's people that go extremely right. So it,
Oh yeah,
it really
100%.
depends on where your middle ground is and what you do with it.
100% agree with that. So we've obviously talked about Gustavo's degree, but actually, so I'm on my, well, I was working on my master's. I'm actually currently taking a break because of COVID, because this sucks. Online classes are the absolute worst.
Very, very bad. Oh,
But-
before you keep going,
Go ahead.
Tony in chat says thank you for your service, Brian.
Oh well, thank you. You're very welcome. It was my pleasure. So I will state that is always the most uncomfortable thing I'm ever told, because I don't know how to answer it half the time. If I'm being
Yeah,
100% honest,
Gather
like,
round, everyone.
uh,
We're ready to begin.
a lot of people don't understand that. For a lot of veterans, for a lot of them, it's a job. That to me, that's what it was. Like, yeah, it took up my life for 3 straight years,
Thanks to you,
where
our researchers
everything
have
I
done
did was military related. I lived in the barracks. Most of my time was military related. So, like, yes, it's a life, but it's also just a job. So I've never. Thank you for your service. Well, obviously, I will always appreciate it, and I will always accept the sentiment. It's one of those things I never know how to
I say we
answer
try
it.
and capture as
And
many
I
as
know
gets
other veterans I've talked to have had this issue where they're like, I don't know how to really deal with it because it's so.
Ravine is the perfect terrain for staging
It's such an
event.
awkward thing to,
We're not
because
gonna
it's
get a
like,
better chance than this.
do you say you're welcome? Because it usually wasn't just for one person. It's usually, honestly, most people that join the military, they don't do it for honor or anything like that. It's a lot of people that join it, especially a lot of people I know that joined, did it because of the benefits, the pay, getting taken, essentially stuff taken care of for you, college, stuff like that. So thank you for your service is always awkward for me, and I know I gotta accept it and get better about it, but it's one of those things where it's like it doesn't get any easier to
That stop you?
deal with that term. So that's probably something we'll talk about a little more, because I know we've talked about talking more about my military experience in the future topic. So we'll save that for a little later down the line, because I do have a lot more to talk about with that. So
Yeah, I also actually,
Before we send the hunters out
real
for
quick,
the capture, we need to
'cause I'm
secure
actually
Sarah.
interested,
Anjanath has been
and this is
active in
something
the
that
area.
I've thought
What
about
kind of
before.
monster you toy
Like,
You're right.
In
Hunters, you remember
Veterans
next
Day,
to be careful.
what
The Anjanath is a
do you
Commander,
want
if
people
I
to
may,
do?
Hunter, I
Because
could use
if
your
you're
help.
saying
Drop
that
by later, if you will.
saying thank you for your service is a bit awkward for you.
it's
that-
just I don't know how to respond to it. I appreciate the sentiment.
that
It's
program
just
report.
I don't know how to respond. That's the problem I have. Is there's not like a easy response to it, because like
Good then. Everyone
that's why I wish that like the VA or the military would come up with a better way to kind of speak to or to answer that, because it's something that I think needs to be kind of universally dealt with. I know a lot of people, like, my usual answer is it was my pleasure and stuff like that, because that's just how I look at it is it was something I enjoyed doing. It was a job. It gave me a lot of good opportunities, but it's one of those things where it will never get easier to answer it just for that reason of, like, how does it not either sound condescending, sound like I don't care, sound like I'm entitled to something because of it. That's how I've always kind of looked at it. So that's the only reason I don't like thanking you for your service and, well, the having to answer it. Like, if I could just say, I don't even know what I'd say. That's why I usually go with my pleasure, because I genuinely don't know. It's one of those awkward things that I don't think anyone will understand unless you join the military. So, but for Veterans Day, one of the big things, like, a lot of businesses give free meals to vets and stuff, and that's always nice and stuff. I haven't participated in Veterans Day in about 2 years now. Usually, me and my best friend used to go, because he's U.S. National Guard Army vet. So we'd go, and we'd usually, our tradition was usually go to Friendly's, get our free meal and free sundae, and then go to the movies for free. That was our tradition. It was just the me and him thing. We looked at it as not a veterans thing, but as a buddy's day kind of thing. So it was never much about being veterans, even though, like, most people be like, oh, how is it not? But because we were friends before the military, so the military kind of just made it a little more personal.
Okay. Interesting.
But yeah, as I was saying before we got on that tangent, you're good. So my degree actually, so my undergrad degrees were all in business associations and management. So essentially, so I can go and be management anywhere. And my intention for the longest time was to run my own business. Obviously, with the massive amount of changes that have happened in the world, not just even before COVID, I started to understand that opening my own business was not going to be feasible. So I started looking at it as, okay, well, I'm enjoying leading teams, and especially within the Esports Association. So why don't I just do it at do esports as management? Because obviously there's coaches, there's people who manage the teams and stuff. So it comes down to really how I wanted to do it. And then, like, right now my graduate degree is in strategic communications, aka dealing with HR and stuff like that. So it's one of those things, like, it's, if you look at it from an outside perspective, maybe you don't make the connection. But when you do have a better understanding of, like, that kind of situation and kind of how stuff like esports works, and you find, as we've said previously, when you find your passion and you kind of discover, because for the longest time I was like, oh, I want to do stuff within comics and stuff like that. But when I got to leading people like you, Gustavo, Don, Lath, other individuals like that, and I got to kind of help you guys discover your potential, especially as leaders and stuff, it very much became, okay, this is what I want to do. Because I'd love to do it in an esports context, in any context. I would love to just be able to make sure individuals have an understanding of what they're capable of, because I think, because this is something else we'll probably get into much later. At a young age, I know it's weird probably for you to hear this, I was very self-conscious. I was not at all comfortable with who I was for a very long time as a kid. I had a lot of confidence issues, to the point where I just wasn't comfortable with people. I didn't really talk to most people. Didn't have a lot of friends. I had a couple really good ones prior to middle
You gotta
school.
always
Actually,
appreciate those friends, though.
oh yeah, 100%. Well,
Always.
sadly, I don't have those friends anymore. That's
Yeah.
something we'll get into in the bad episode that I don't want my family to watch. But no, that friend, very much was the reason I got through, because at that point I was in kind of a really dark place. That like a lot of people don't know about if you don't know me personally. I was in an extremely dark place where I didn't really know how to deal with my emotions and stuff. But the funny thing was, like, no matter what I did for a very long time, I couldn't get out of that place because of I was bullied at school. At home, I didn't really fit in. We'll get into that in that episode where I don't want my family to watch. But I had a lot of issues where I didn't really have a place to allow myself to deal with all the stuff I was dealing with. So I was in a very dark place for a long time. So, which is probably weird you hearing this, because obviously you've seen this side of me where I'm very much self-confident. I know who I am. I know what I do.
It's Brian being Brian.
Exactly. So, like, probably imagining me as somebody who's uncomfortable with themselves or doesn't understand themselves is probably a weird thought for you, because that's just never who I haven't had those issues in a very long time. I'm grateful for. So I'm very glad I was able to get to the point where
Once one of your specialized tools effect has expired, unequip it.
Are you also in like a really important fight right now?
yeah, I'm in the middle of a
Same.
Kobayashi fight, so it's like which is
Take a
actually one of
second
my
to just-
least favorite monsters to fight, but I love its armor in this game, so it's like it's worth the fight, but God, is it so hard to fight.
Yeah, I never got into Monster Hunter, so I don't know, man.
Oh, it's one of those games where it's not for everyone. I actually had never really played one before World. I got into World because one of my buddies, Donnie, who's actually designing my updated logo, which, Donnie, if you're watching, thank you, bro. But no, so it's one of those games where it's a lot more fun with friends. I will state that 100%.
Yeah.
But like, even if you're not, just like the monsters, it's such a strategic game. And as I'm sure you guys can tell from a lot of the games I bring up or I play, I love strategy. I love the idea of having to think through things. That's why I love games like this, StarCraft, Teamfight Tactics. Stuff like that is very much kind of where my specialization lies in gaming. Hence Hearthstone being the
shit.
yeah. Hearthstone was actually the game that got me into esports, so I will always I hate it now. I hate playing it most of the time. Cuz it's just it became very much a pay to play, much less a pay to win. And not in the good way like whatchamacallit is. Like WoW is pay to play, but it's cuz it's a subscription service. So it's at least a little more acceptable. Hearthstone is literally just, hey, you want this card that's actually really good in every deck? Pay $20.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is gross. I don't like that.
You'll get stunned more easily now.
But yeah. What do you? So, let's see. I'm trying to see what we can talk about that won't be like too much
Stuff we'll talk about later.
Yeah. because I do want to talk a little bit about what people can expect in the future.
Mm-hmm. Hence, I've been like
Oh.
teasing stuff.
Okay, so in the future, I do plan on having guests. I have a couple of guests that are already confirmed, and we've already talked some stuff out so that we can set it up. We're not going to be having guests that soon. I want to have a decent foundation and make sure we know what we're doing before having guests. Because with guests, I want to make sure that this is a very quality show.
Mm-hmm.
So-
I agree.
I would rather have our fuck ups now, realize what we're fucking up in, and then after we're fucked up and we get our shit straight, then we start having people in. So I'd say maybe like 2-3 more episodes. I think that's a decent number.
We'll see. I think playing it by ear is probably a little better than trying to have a
Yeah.
pre-plan for it.
Yeah. I'm just guessing by the second or third episode we'll
Be comfortable.
have it straight, yeah. But there's going to be talks about a lot of shit.
Mhm.
Obviously we've talked about esports before. We're both passionate about esports, so there will probably be something about that. Things like actual jobs and how
You can balance that with gaming and stuff. 'Cause,
yeah,
like,
Not
that's
even
obviously
gaming, just like things in general, like your own personal like,
personal
projects and
lives
stuff like
being
that.
able to juggle, because like that's something I think is especially relevant in today's world, because jobs tend to take up so much time, and people I think forget that at times, that like
Yeah.
it's gonna eat away at personal relationships like it is. So my wife and I, we actually for a while worked at the same place, over local gas station Burn Dairy, and for a while we were working opposite shifts. I'd work from 5 to 1. She'd work from 1 to 10. So we'd literally never see each other, which is obviously
that's-
not exactly a healthy situation. It's something we had talked with our boss at the time about, and she essentially kind of gave us the, well, there's not much I can do. And
that
so,
really sucks.
yeah, so when it came down to me looking, because I ended up going back there once after quitting initially because I was going back to school. I went back there for a little while, and I was like, well, I can only work these hours, and they happen to be nights, so I could actually, spend time with my wife. And she wasn't too happy about it at first. She was very like, oh, well, I'm only going to be able to give you so many hours. I'm like, that's fine, but these are the hours I'm set to. And then when it came down to later, we ended up having an issue of she'd have me work. I think I had almost 40 hours the week of finals.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, so I literally called in twice, and she was really upset with me. And I'm like, Melissa, you gave me almost 40 hours this week. What was I supposed to do?
40 hours and also taking finals. That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, so it came down to, like, I was extremely upset because it's like, well, how do I handle this? Because, like, I want to obviously work, but at the same time, I need to focus on school. And she had, initially when I had gone back, me and her had agreed to the understanding that school was my priority. So when she pulled that, I was like, and obviously I've recently gone back to work. She had asked me why I didn't consider applying back at Burn. And I'm like, well, last time I did, you literally kind of screwed me on hours and stuff. I'm like, I would not go back there if you're not going to make sure I'm taken care of. Because, like,
when you came in with an agreement and she broke that agreement.
exactly.
So how can you trust that she won't do it again?
Exactly. I think that's where she had the misunderstanding that, like, it was fine, but obviously, like, for me, it wasn't. So it's one of those hard things, like, especially when you're just getting into working, it's hard to understand, like, where is it okay to have that line set and be able to call out a boss like that? Because it's not an easy situation.
You don't want to mess things up where it's like your boss hates you and then
You're never
short
given
of
hours
work.
because, you know, they don't want to take care of you. So
Yeah, it's
it's
a very
one of those
sticky
hard
situation.
things. But, like, you need to set a precedent. You need to have an answer to, like, okay, well, this is not going well. Where is your line? I think is kind of what I'm trying to say. Because obviously, if you don't have that set prior, you're going to be like, well, so now that this has happened, like, how do I deal with it? Because I'm super uncomfortable about it. And, like, that's kind of where I was. I was like, I don't know how I should be dealing with this situation because it just feels wrong. But I didn't know how to deal with it. So I think that's very much something, like, you're never going to understand until you've been put in that position once, at least.
Yeah.
Which
Time
sucks
management
because,
with work is also something that I really, really struggle with. Cause
oh, that's
especially
everyone.
Me, I work with I work the night shift, the graveyard shift. I am working from like 10:30 to 8 a.m. So while everyone's asleep, I'm out working, and when everyone's awake, I'm out sleeping. So it's very hard to like keep up with a social life, also keep up with my personal things, and also keep up with work. And I'm also the type of person that works very, very hard. I am an excruciatingly hard working person. So I want to make sure if I'm at work, I'm fucking busting my ass and doing my job. So
Which
that
is the right answer. You want to be.
plus getting enough sleep.
Yeah, that's
It's
the one
rough.
I get on you about.
Yeah. Sleeping is a bit of an issue sometimes, but I'm working on it. It's just there's so much stuff that I want to do.
That
but
it makes it
then
hard.
There's also so little time. Like with the amount of things that I'm doing, there's something has to be sacrificed, and I guess what makes me
Sleep
me
is always the easiest.
Yeah. I feel like what makes me me is the things that I end up sacrificing. Like, I still want to have a social life. I still want to work my ass off. I still want to work on my personal projects. So sometimes, you know,
Something's
you
got to
cut back
give.
on sleep, and yeah.
I
you know,
100% understand it.
There are
Sucks.
some days where you need to value your more than everything else, and there are some days where, you know, sleep can wait for another day. It just depends.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But yeah, I think that's a pretty good start there for, you know, what to expect. Unless you have anything else you want to add?
I think the only other thing I can add is expect us to very much be on the side of, hey, if you guys are in chat with questions, we're going to try to answer them as best as possible. Sometimes
Oh,
it's going to be a
yes,
little
yes.
harder, obviously.
Yeah, I would like to, if there's enough people, maybe have like a dedicated section or time for questions. Because
Mhm.
obviously, while we're mid discussion, it's a
It's
bit
hard to.
Yeah. So if like I see something that's like very
Run out of health. You'll faint and be returned to the closest
like
camp.
something important
Faint too
or like
many
a really
times and you'll
interesting
fail the
topic,
quest.
I could like try to put it in, but it's a little difficult. So I would like to have a dedicated time specifically for like chat interaction and stuff like that. And you know, if anything, you can always just reach out and we can just have you as a guest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if there's something you definitely want to talk about, you're like, well, they're not getting to chat today. Well, then bring it up, and maybe we can either have you on sometime, or We can bring it up in the next chat even.
Yeah. Of
Oh my
course.
god, this thing's gonna kill me.
I've died plenty of times since we've been talking, Brian. It's
Oh.
actually quite sad how I can't get past one specific boss.
Same.
But yeah, I think that's a pretty good foundation. We explained who we are, why we're doing this, and yeah. So Brian, I would like to have the people on my side know where they can find you.
So for me, you can find me on my Twitch, obviously, which is twitch.tv/Hawkeye57_57. And then on my Twitter, which is at Hawkeye57_. So hopefully I'll have more social media coming out soon. I'm hoping to have my YouTube done soon. I don't really do Instagram, so can't really plug that one. But yeah,
That's fair,
where
that's
you
fair.
can currently find me.
Alright, and for me, you can find me on twitch.tv/TheEnderGames12, and on Twitter, that's where I put most of my in fact, all of my updates. That's where I'm most active in. You can find me at Real Ender Games. And yeah, that's it. This is gaming with a point.
Yeah, we hope to see you
And-
guys next week's episode.
Yep, next week, Saturday, 7 p.m. EST. You can come visit on either channel. We appreciate you. And thank you for stopping by.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish this fight on stream just because, you know, why not? But yeah,
Your boy's gonna end stream.
actually, I
Brian,
should probably end stream too
It's
because
been a pleasure.
always.
I will talk to you soon, bud.
Talk to you soon, man.
Alright, bye.
Bye. So yeah, stream, we're gonna finish this just because we are in the middle of this fight, and I want to finish this thing off. So we're gonna try to catch it. But yeah, after that, we are going to end the stream. For those of you that came out and checked it out, thank you very much. Hopefully next time we're gonna have an actual topic, so it'll be a lot easier to discuss. Today it was kind of just getting to know myself and Gustavo. So next week there'll probably be a little more of a topic for us. So I hope more people can come out, join, check us out, and enjoy the product that we're putting out. We're really trying to put a lot into this, especially from a emotional perspective. We're trying to very much look at it like that, because I think that's where we differ from others. Where's this thing? Oh, nope. But yeah, we're gonna take out this Tomodachi just because I want to finish this for the stream. Hell yeah, we even got on it. Let's go. Heck yeah, let's go. Let me finish this thing off. Whoa, woof. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go, stream. We'll take down this
Let's
Toby
hand out the
Kadachi.
report to the chief botanist.
Heck yeah. That's awesome. Cool. Which is actually awesome because I really like its gear, if I recall correctly. So. But yeah, that's where we're going to end stream. As soon as this timer runs out, we're going to head back. Once again, guys, thank you so much for showing up to the podcast. It's actually really awesome. I appreciate you guys more than you guys will probably ever really know, because it very much, this has been a passion project for Gustavo and I, and we're hoping that this continues to work out and it continues to do well. So I'm hoping you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have any suggestions for me, hit me up on any of my social media. Have any kind of discussions with me, guys. But thank you guys once again for coming to check out the podcast, check out the stream and everything. I'm probably actually going to stream a little bit later too, just because I do have some free time tonight, because I don't really have much to do other than a little bit of campaign planning, but I might do that on stream. But yeah, thank you guys yet again for coming out. It's greatly appreciated, because this, as I said, is a passion project, and without people to come watch, there's not much of a point to doing it.